Guru Nation, we got something special that we don't do that often. But, well, Chris, we might be doing this more and more, man. We have a new FDA in town.
A
There's a
new one.
brand new FDA. These FDA are podcasting. These FDA are podcasting. The head of the FDA, whose book I have on queue in my Audible, Macquarie, he just appointed the Center for Biologics and what's the Evaluation and Review, CBER, which is like the most important branch of the FDA, Vinay Prasad.
Okay.
And then I forgot the lady's name, but we're gonna watch their podcast. This is their first of. They said they want to win the Americans' trust back. They want to take the FDA from being a black box to a glass box. So we might have a lot of these podcasts they do. They're promising a lot that we react to. But at least the important ones, if they really do it to that extent. But this is the first one. So let's go. Give people our reactions kind of as we go. And we'll go from there, right?
Unscripted, no makeup, live from the FDA.
Can you hear it?
I can hear it softly.
Softly. Okay.
Hey, welcome, Vinay Prasad. Great to see you.
It's great to be here, Marty. It's great to be joining.
And we got Sanjala Jan Nagpal, who is an awesome PhD health policy expert who is with us in the commissioner's office. So great to see both of you guys. And I don't know exactly what we're doing, but we're having a conversation. And this is just going to be some civil discourse here, having fun. And I think it's good for people to see what we're talking about, how we're thinking about things, instead of the FDA kind of being a black box of, what's going on inside the agency.
Absolutely, Marty. I think ultimately the FDA serves the American people, and it's really great for the American people to directly have access to the commissioner to hear what you're thinking and what initiatives you're sparking here. And too often, so many articles about the FDA are behind a paywall for industry insiders only. And we're going to try to make the FDA accessible to the average person in America.
I get the glass box.
In the glass box here with a beautiful view of FDA campus, not the black box.
Yeah.
Look at this beautiful campus here. It is going to be lined up with a farmer's market on Tuesday, thanks to shout out to Melanie, who's in the background there. And it's going to be every week. We're going to do it every single week. Maybe even some seed oil-free food trucks. Who knows?
Well, I mean, obviously, healthy food is an important initiative that you're taking on. Yeah,
big
part of the program.
That's part of what you're working on,
Yeah.
Angela, is healthy food. So we got big goals on that front. So it's great to have Vinay Prasad here. One, because he's a great scientific mind. Two, he wants to serve our country. And three, he thinks and looks like Albert Einstein in terms of his hair.
Now that you say that, yeah.
It's the regulatory haircut. It's the
Regulatory.
regulatory haircut.
So is that an insult? I'm just
Yes,
curious.
but I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no, it's a compliment.
I would
think it's a compliment.
I would be insulted at that remark personally.
If your boss especially is telling you that, because he's was appointed by him. Macri is his boss. Macri is both of their bosses.
Albert Einstein, I've always thought of as his hair is in complete disarray, but that kind of adds to the caricature of him just being just a big mind, right?
I have a PI like that who walks out. He's Indian as well, and he walks out with his hair like this, and I call him like mad scientist. But
yeah, and that's what you think when it's there's a complete disarray.
But in addition to the hair, man, like I think we do this. It was a good time to pause and reflect on what the hell's actually happening. So I've been doing research since 2005. That's pretty much when, to me, like as a professional, I started being interested in what the FDA had to say, right? Prior to that, I could care less. I was just a college student. You know about the FDA, but you don't really care. But as a research professional, 20 years I've been doing this. You used to go to conferences to try to hear maybe hints of what the FDA is thinking. You know, people like Pat Stone might show up at a conference and give you like a glimpse into their thought process. But to get the three heads, like the head of the FDA, the head of CBER, and then I believe the young lady here is from the food side, I mean, to get this kind of access, and they say it's going to be on a regular basis. Like, to me, that alone is worth. I know you don't vote for these guys, but it'd be
Well,
worth my vote.
in a roundabout way, you do.
Sure, you vote for the ideal that your president will appoint,
Yep.
these kind of archetypes. But, the crazy thing is, like, and this guy here, Vinay, so he gets a lot of hate because he's a little bit on Twitter, like anti CRISPR stuff, anti gene editing, which actually Robert Kennedy Jr., who's all of these guys' bosses, by the way, because he's the head of HHS.
Mm-hmm.
He's very pro gene editing and all that. But so they're putting people in place that don't necessarily agree with 100%. But he's getting a lot of hate. Yeah, but it's amazing to me how, okay, you could disagree with him, and I know a lot of investors are pissed, like, oh, that means less approvals. If you actually listen to this interview and the interview with Megyn Kelly, with Macri only on that one, it's actually going to be faster opportunities for approval and shorter timelines. They keep saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'll continue because we're only a little bit into it. But
well, so people aren't questioning me. What do you mean that's what you want? So I believe you want diversity of opinion, right? Because you're not going to change somebody's mind to try something if you all just agree on everything.
Well, I agree. Above all else, I want transparency. I want an FDA whose leaders are willing to talk to the American people. And so we don't have to guess what's the FDA's draft guidance. People used to celebrate when a draft guidance get released once every 3 years. Now you're going to have like weekly, maybe monthly. I don't know how often they're going to do it. But they've already done more than all the other FDA regimes before them just for doing this one podcast. As far as transparency goes, in my opinion.
Sure.
Here and to join FDA and try to work in service of the American people and try to bring innovative products to market.
And you're going to be working at CBER. Do you want to tell folks what CBER is, since we've got some science people and some non-science people listening?
I mean, CBER, we govern a huge portfolio of medical products, including vaccines, gene therapy, cellular therapy. A lot of the most innovative things you read about in the news are things coming from CBER. Not to say the other departments here don't do innovative products, they do. But I think I'm particularly excited about what's been coming out in the last decade through CBER division. And we hope to always strike the balance between data, evidence, innovation, and entrepreneurial spirit of America. So that's what we're going to do.
Does that sound good to you, Sangela?
Sounds exciting, although I have a lot of questions about how you're going to approach it.
Okay, so tell me.
So, there are a lot of headlines out there about you being, kind of a critic of the administration and kind of how things have been handled in the past with a lot of those products you talked about, and that maybe you're anti-vax, but I know that that's not true.
Ooh, well...
So tell us a little bit about why have you been critical, particularly in the vaccine?
Hold on. So the head of the FDA is just reacting like this. He's already my type of dude, right? Just based off of that reaction.
Space and help everyone understand, kind of your thinking behind that.
So, I mean, I think vaccines are like drugs. Which is that when given at the right time and the right moment to the right person, they're life-saving. But just like drugs, they need to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis and always take into the context that you're giving. And Marty and I, throughout the pandemic, we were proponents of vaccines for the people in whom it had a huge benefit. But we were always a bit skeptical from a scientific standpoint about perhaps overdoing it in some low-risk populations.
Wait a minute, you don't think a healthy, thin 12-year-old girl needs a 7th COVID shot?
7th versus the 8th versus the 9th versus... I mean, it's really...
It's an unknown.
It's an unknown. And it also is a way in which the United States has never been in line with peer nations across Europe. And so that's not anti-vax. It's pro-science, trying to bring the best available science to answer these questions. The media, in many cases, in my opinion, they sort of misrepresent the concepts that we're talking about at FDA. They have sort of a superficial view of what we're doing, and in some ways they kind of miss the mark. But in terms of what I've been doing for 15 years, I'm a professor, I'm a hem-onc doctor. Probably no one's given, or few doctors have given as many vaccines as I have, because I took care of a lot of patients post autologous stem cell transplant. Immunosuppressed. We gave, and you need to give these patients vaccines. So, we love vaccines when done right, when given appropriately, when based on solid evidence, and we're going to hold up that standard at FDA.
I thought your media coverage was actually good. On the whole, it was good, which is, you don't always see that.
No, I think that's right.
I wanted to have a low expectation and then come in high. Yeah.
No, but I think there are a lot of questions, a lot of excitement, enthusiasm. I saw something this morning saying, the scientific community is finally seeing everything that both of you championed, early on during the peak of the pandemic, right? You were early tracking the evidence and not everybody was on board, and now they're seeing it. But there was some kind of talk about maybe you've been unfair about how things were handled, from a policy perspective, because in the moment of crisis, you don't have time to collect the evidence. So I think something I would ask both of you is, how are you thinking about balancing kind of pace of innovation, right? We've all been outside of government and we've seen firsthand, innovation goes faster than the government policy, right? And I know that's something that we're all trying to work really hard to close that gap. But how do you balance speed with scientific rigor, to your point about needing to get the right evidence in moments where you have crisis and things that need to be acted on?
And in light of our new post-approval monitoring process, where we're going to be able to do big data analyses of signals, safety and efficacy signals in big data after approval that we've never been able to do before. That gives us a whole new lens that we've never had.
Yeah, I think, and to this point about what Marty and I were arguing throughout the pandemic, one point I want to make is that our positions were probably the center point of most Americans. And eventually, a lot of the issues that we were out ahead of the curve on, people have come to our position after 6 months or 12 months or 2 years and forgotten that they held a different position all along. That's one. And
the data caught up, in other words. You're talking about prolonged school closures, masking toddlers.
We were critics of these, from the beginning. And that speaks to how you appraise evidence, not to get caught up in groupthink, try to be open-minded when you look at the evidence. So that's one. I think that the public is very close to where we are on a lot of these issues. I'm not sure about all the media coverage, but definitely the public.
Should we invite some of the media to just be a part of this conversation?
It's true.
I think it'd be good to have
Yeah.
a reporter or a couple. Just, I think the more discourse, the better, right? So they've got questions. Probably some people out there in America have those questions. Let's bring them in. Let's have a conversation. Let's bring them in right here. Let's get another chair, put them right here, and we have a conversation.
Love to do it. And, some of it is a matter of, how do you explain to the American people and to reporters, what should the control arm be in a clinical study? How do we think about that? What kind of questions are we answering with potentially different control arms? That's something that was in the news a lot, but I didn't see an explainer about what exactly the science is around control arms in clinical trials, which goes back a long way.
So for those of us who are not as sciencey, kind of in the weeds as you are.
Laboratory science.
Yeah, laboratory science. Sorry, good point. Break it down. So are you saying that we've made decisions, this agency has made decisions rooted in evidence, but you're talking about a different standard of evidence. So explain.
Well, I think ultimately we get excited about innovative medical products, just as the FDA always have. We all continue to believe in a flexible regulatory standard, taking into account the context of a disease, whether it's rare, if it's dire. We will continue to be flexible. There's not going to be a light switch change here. But around the edges, I think there were a number of missteps along the way. I think the public recognizes those missteps. That's why some products the FDA has approved, as Marty points out, the majority, 85% of healthcare workers don't want a booster that the FDA granted authorization for. And we really aren't sure about kids and how many doses they need, and healthcare workers who just had COVID, whether they need another booster. And these are important scientific questions that the public deserves an answer on. And there we might try to bring science to answer these questions.
I think of it as gold standard science and common sense both. We got to blend them both. And there's no hard and fast rules on this. And so, I hear about these rare disease conditions that might affect, a couple hundred kids or, a small population. And that's not that different from incurable cancers that I've seen in my career, that you've seen in your career. You're a hematologist, oncologist. How do you think about those?
I think that you have to have tremendous regulatory flexibility for rare diseases that severely impact small groups of people. We're running randomized clinical trials might be very difficult or impossible to do.
Impossible sometimes,
perhaps.
yeah.
And we need to embrace new technologies, innovative pathophysiology in terms of how to assess those products. At the same time, we also want to protect those patients from potentially harmful products. So we will continue to strike the balance at FDA between those two things. And I think FDA has always been committed to being flexible and listening to the communities impacted by rare conditions.
Some words of wisdom he's dropping here. I mean,
I'm excited.
I'm excited. I wonder if these AI machines out there are really just Vinay. If they're really just going to Vinay's, he's the one answering all these questions.
Well, AI is a good topic because you've taken an interest in AI in the agency and you're doing some things around it.
Yeah, day one.
So they're going to get into AI, but rare disease, a lot of people are worried, like rare disease sites. They're talking about reducing the necessity for 2 double-blind trials to 1 for rare disease, and then balancing it afterwards with real-world evidence from the physicians' practices from the EMRs, de-identified. The argument, if in favor of this for the sites, is well, you're going to incentivize more rare disease treatments to come out, so the net result will be the same amount of work. And the con, obviously, are the fearful people. Oh, they're not going to need us anymore. They're just going to do 1 and then real world evidence. And the critics of this will say, well, a lot of people are going to get harmed. We need to do 2 studies. I mean, where do you stand on this rare disease? We don't really do rare disease at our sites, but those are tough studies.
So
Tough.
Sure. And I've felt this way probably now for over 10 years easily. I think for all phases, all therapeutic areas, they should do the same, because I think it should be one study. Well, maybe
I remember you
two.
were saying this early on too.
Yeah, like over 10 years ago.
Yeah, so they're thinking about it. At least they're starting with rare disease.
Right. And I think if that proves successful, which I think it will, so long as you have a sound method to gather that real world evidence, I think that should bleed over to what you and I do personally.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that will affect me too. So I feel for the people. I will feel for myself, but I think in general, I think you'll have better products and it'll make them a bit cheaper.
And I think we still have a good decade of site owners, but they get into AI here next. We're about halfway through.
We said we got to stop just talking about AI, having conferences and panels and frameworks and consensus document. We got to do it, right? We have to actually do it. We got to do it.
This part's interesting to me right here.
Day one, when I got in, 5 weeks ago now, we started a massive initiative, and we have now the first high-level AI-assisted scientific review that just took place, and the scientific reviewer loved it. I mean, I don't know if we can find him or pull him in here to bring him on the camera, but I mean, what he said about, I don't know if he talked to you.
Yeah, I was reviewing some of the data we talked about. I mean, to go from, it was 3 days down to 6 minutes for just one piece of that review process is tremendous.
Yeah, I think the public that may not be aware, but when a reviewer is thinking about the application for a medical product, we're talking not just hundreds of pages to read, but potentially thousands or maybe tens of thousands of pages to read. And if you have AI brought into that to help you dissect, to cut to the most important parts of it, we can.
There goes another 100 jobs.
Drug regulation and drug processes.
Well,
and that's a boon to everybody.
The thing is, they're not talking about that because in my ex just got lost. Hold on, we got to go back. They're not talking about that. They're talking about, at least not yet, right?
No, they are. They're not directly talking about it, but when they say that we can
well,
alleviate...
you're connecting dots, right? That's
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're still assuming though. You're assuming based on your...
If it's 6 days of analyzing material and AI is done in 3 minutes, you don't need however many individuals you're employing to take care of that, right? You only need one individual to read the results.
Yes. So they're talking about, in particular, one section of a submission. These submissions are really thousands of pages. This dude, he's
Exactly.
correct. I'm an investor in AQST, and they sent the most documentation ever in the history of the universe on epinephrine, and it was tens of thousands of pages. So right now, reviewers are reviewing.
So how many
this
jobs
stuff.
is that?
He said it's one. It was one guy for that study, for that particular study.
Sure, but okay, 10,000 pages, right?
Right.
That's going to take at least a few people, I would
At least a
assume,
few people
to read in a timely fashion.
Right, but what? So yeah, I see what you mean about the jobs, but I think the benefit of it is you can get more. You can get quicker approvals, quicker
Yeah,
rejections.
but I'm just saying, people who are complaining about
Yeah,
real world evidence are going to complain about this too.
people are going to complain about everything when there's money at stake. I mean, regardless
Sure.
of what party you're on. But
Sure.
let's continue.
We're talking not just hundreds of pages to read, but potentially thousands
I
or
went a
even
little
tens
bit
of
back,
thousands of pages to read. And if you have AI brought into that to help you dissect, to cut to the most important parts of it,
So
we
you
can
cut to the
tremendously
most.
speed up drug regulation and drug processes. And that's a boon to everybody, patients, industry,
The
American
industry.
people
But
alike.
also let scientists focus on the science, right? And kind of cut out that additional burdensome noise.
You know, I found in busy clinical practice, what drove me crazy was not the hard work or the acuity of that work. I love that. I love hard work. I love high intellectual work. What drove me crazy was the stuff that was unnecessary, the scheduling cases in the operating room, the burden of coding and documenting. It was things that were repetitive.
You probably still have some notes to finish, Marty. You're not done?
No, all my notes are
You're
done.
all done?
All my notes are done. Yeah. But it's
Sounds like a few
can,
doctors we know.
You know, I think of it, if we can get rid of some of that redundant busy work, it makes the job more enjoyable. People need to focus on their superpowers here at the FDA. And, you know, I've heard reviewers telling me that they're reading so many things. There's just, some stuff is just repetitive. Right?
This part, Chris, these reviewers, it's not that they're going to get replaced. It's going to help them do their jobs better and faster, which in theory will make these biotechs innovate quicker, which will just increase the amount of work. So the AIs become a tool as opposed to.
Yeah, I disagree, but okay.
I know you disagree. That's one case.
You know, I've heard reviewers telling me that they're reading so many things. There's just some stuff is just repetitive, right? And if AI can grab all the unique facts and summarize them for the reviewer, and they love it, like the reviewer we spoke with or you spoke with, maybe reviews can be done faster. We can get more decisions out in a shorter period of time. And most importantly, they'll love their jobs more. I mean, that's what we have to, that's our job as leaders, to make a great workplace culture for people where they can focus on their superpowers, do their job well, support them, not burden them with red tape and busy work.
See, there you go, Chris.
And, you know,
there's
frankly,
superpowers.
There's been
He's
some
on my
change here.
side.
It's been tough for some folks.
The superpowers.
And so what we can, you know, my focus has been what can we do to empower people and give them all the resources they need so they enjoy their work and feel like they're supported.
I think
it's important to note, I got this from the Megyn Kelly interview with Marquis. Not a single, despite the media headlines, not a single reviewer was laid off during the cuts. Not a single reviewer or auditor. So those are the people auditing the facilities, the sites, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Nor a single reviewer, the ones reviewing the NDA submissions. The media doesn't tell you that. Now, towards the end here, it gets very interesting with some of the regulatory capture. I know, Chris, you're going to be particularly peeved by this.
Uh-oh.
It's coming. I think it's towards the end.
About on modernizing methods and processes here, because as I talk around with individuals across the agency.
But before we go, like maybe your halftime report so far, are you a fan now of these? I know this is probably the first time you heard any of these three talk.
No, I've heard the white gentleman speak before.
Market, they're all Indian. They're all Indian
He
American.
is?
Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't look Indian.
Yeah.
I've heard him speak before.
Okay. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds reasonable to me, but I like to think I'm reasonable.
Sure, everyone does.
I
Okay.
mean, they tell me they were doing
Exactly.
things
That's
that
why I
have
said
been
it that way.
for 20, 30 years, right? We live in this exciting era of new advancements in, scientific, discovery and technology. I mean, everyone's got smartphones now. I mean, we consume information so differently, and we haven't really kept pace with that. And so I think whether it's AI or some of the new kind of clinical methods and we're going to use to test things, that's all part of it.
We have to make our submissions easier. We have to make it so sponsors don't have to fill out information over and over again when they've already told us once. But you're absolutely right. You just can't be the same. You have to always be changing and adapting. And too often in big institutions, that doesn't happen.
So have you seen your new office?
I did see it, yeah.
How is it?
It's nice. It's got a good view here of the beautiful campus. And I mean, all the offices at FDA are really nice. And I do feel sort of an energy being here. And I'm coming from a college campus, so it's a very different energy. It's a productive energy here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So sorry, you were right. Marty Marquez is white. He's British. The other two are Indians. I was talking about this podcast with Darshan, who couldn't join us today for the reaction, and he was like, "Yeah, man, the Indians, taking over." So I just assumed all three were, but yeah, my bad.
I've loved getting to know so many people here. I mean, these are hard-working Americans that really want to do great things, and it's just awesome to see how they've dedicated their lives to a job that is not a high-profile job, but so critical to our entire world of discoveries and bringing cures, and they do it for no credit sometimes. So, I mean, it's just been pretty cool to meet a lot of these folks. So if we get some seed oil food trucks with good food, they deserve it for sure.
We'll get on that.
Dr. Joe would love this.
So I wonder if you guys think it would be a good idea to do more public stuff here. We're at the main center part, sort of the nerve center of the agency. People might be able to see on the camera the beautiful campus here where most of the scientific review takes place. What if we brought in, I don't want to call them stakeholders, but we brought in different experts on different topics and just had an open discourse. Just bring them in, have a round table. You don't have to go through all the red tape of people coming through an official commission, which has a whole lot of bureaucracy and cost. We just invite people in for a roundtable discussion, let them talk passionately about all the scientific topics that they think are important to talk about that we have not been talking about, and then let that discourse take place, and we can just listen.
And things that don't fit neatly within the drug advisory committee model, topics that kind of span different groups and different fields. And I know you got a couple of those planned in the summertime.
Yeah, I think we're looking at some pretty cool topics that are emerging in medicine, and we'll probably set up, we might be able to do a roundtable in a couple weeks, I think. I was talking to some of our folks back there, and I think Bigfoot is supportive. I don't know where he is right now, but
Bigfoot?
He's one of our AV experts. Yeah. Bigfoot around?
Okay. He's monitoring your audio.
Yeah, there he is.
So it's funny how he picks out. So I assume this person's got big feet, calls this guy Einstein, and the other guy's got big feet, so he's Bigfoot.
Yeah, Marty McCary is an amazing guy. He would be awesome to hang around with, I feel like. Marty, we need you on the show, man. Come on.
He doesn't seem to hold back or really care.
I would love this guy on the pod.
Sure.
You a nickname that you haven't assigned to yourself already. Yeah, so
self-appointed,
and we have seen Bigfoot. For a while, it was like steroids resulting in somebody improving in the ICU. Like everyone heard of it, but nobody actually saw it.
Yeah.
And we called that, it's like Bigfoot. No one actually saw the benefit.
Never witnessed this effect.
Ultimately, everyone did see it.
He's got jokes,
but I think these conversations would be good to be more proactive, right? And actually, follow the evidence as it's coming out, to have those discussions in real time.
Yeah, proactive, and discussions that include the media, that include patients, patient advocacy groups, the industry,
Bringing
having more of
in
those here, and experts who've been
patients,
studying these topics
patient
for 20 years, I think would be
advocates, the
good.
media, the industry to
FDA,
have
to me,
roundtable
as an
discussions
outsider prior to coming here,
before.
the closest I
See, that's what he's talking about as well. Like, obviously, they're gonna have to produce and do things that, I mean, we'll see. Like, let's let them cook. Let's see what happens. Right? Give them time. But so far, the thesis is exactly what I want to hear. Fully transparent, open communication. We're not hiding anything. Not all these draft guidances. They're still going to be doing those, but let these guys, if they want to do a draft guidance for like GCP revisions, let them bring on some clinical research experts. Cough, cough, we'll go. Me and Chris will come on, or like other people from the industry, and have a conversation. Why let people guess as to what they might be thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Like, these guys are just telling you.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming, in my opinion.
Should be that way in every facet of government.
I think we'll get there, but obviously the one I've watched closest is this one.
Sure.
ever got to understand the thinking of FDA officials is to read the rare JAMA viewpoint or to try to
So he's
pour
talking
through,
about this too.
the letter that they're submitting the company or the medical review. And so I think it's a complete change of pace that you're going to be doing these podcasts and videos directly to American people, to patients. I haven't seen anything like that. And I've been following the FDA closely for 20 years now.
I think we just
Me
got to
too,
talk.
20 years.
We got to talk as we go, talk openly and honestly, just share with people what we're thinking. Within our legal constraints, obviously, we can't talk about products that are currently under review at the FDA. People ask, what about this product and that product? Well, we have to follow the law, but
You
we can
nosy
talk about how we
investors.
think about things.
Relax,
And
nosy
I
ass
think one
investors.
thing
You're not getting
that
any info.
developers and inventors appreciate is predictability. Now, understanding how we generally think about things.
Well, that's always a way in which I thought it was
One thing, I said this in my articles too, one thing industry wants is predictability. That's it. So if you know where they're headed, you don't have to guess anymore. Like, FDA approves this, declines the complete response letter for this, without really understanding. You just kind of watch like how the chips fall. Whereas now they're saying they're going to make it very clear. This is what we expect. I mean, that's predictability. Look, I'm predicting a golden decade. I know, I wish we can do a money market gambling bet. If Guru Nation wants to take the under, I'll take the over and see you guys in 10 years, suckers.
unfair. On the one
I'd
hand,
take that
the
bet.
manufacturer of a
I'll take it
specific
too.
product,
Oh, you take the
they get
under?
a letter, they can spin
I'll
it and
take
frame
that you
it
don't
any
have
way
a
they
solid
want,
10
but
years.
the FDA can't
There'll be a recession between now and then that impacts the FDA.
Well, we'd have to define what's solid, but yeah, because it's getting arbitrary here. What's solid for me might be like horrible for you. I don't eat at Michelin star restaurants, so.
Ha 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 ha! Yes, you do. So, I'm thinking in terms of like the GFC.
Great financial crisis. You keep referring that. People don't know, man.
Well,
You
from
gotta educate
2008, from 2008 to 2013, 14, somewhere in there.
Nah, I didn't go that long. Like 2012.
12.
Yeah,
Okay,
2012.
that's 5 years, right?
Although my best year as a researcher until last year was 2012.
Okay. So 4 or 5 years, the industry really slowed down, right? Because of a recession.
Yeah. But the industry, you're looking at it through the lens of a side owner, and we have to look through it through the lens of a sponsor. And
Yeah,
we don't.
their stock prices all declined
Okay,
substantially.
somebody in the notes, some nerd, go look this up, and you'll win a book or
apply
something.
in the press to
Wait.
clarify.
Pick a
Or
company.
I'll give you a share of AQST. It's like $3 almost now. What, you wanted to say something? I thought you gotta go. We gotta get.
I do gotta go. But go
All
ahead.
right,
Go ahead.
let's do that. You're gonna get pissed right here.
Go ahead.
We are, in one way, we are a little bit of a disadvantage, but we'll try our best to convey the broader principles of regulatory science that govern not just any individual approval, but all of the approvals. And hopefully the media will start to understand, what we're doing.
There's often details in a product decision that the public is not looking at or doesn't know about. So it is pretty nuanced. And I've even found myself at sometimes saying, yeah, that's strange that this got approved or didn't approve. And then as I learn more, you realize there's actually a good reason for it.
I would say FDA reviews are like a pomegranate. There's fruit in there, but it's a heck of time to get it out. And sometimes
Fair
feels
analysis.
Right, but policy and science is nuanced, right? It's not just black or white. There's a lot to consider.
Exactly. Which is why we should think of everybody as contributing valuable scientific input rather than.
You know what's crazy? Like, I've never wanted to subscribe to a government agency podcast until these three. I'm like, subscribe, sign me up. I want to hear every podcast. These three have good chemistry. Like, this is like a normal podcast. You don't think, you forget these are the top dogs at this agency, which you never got before in the history of the U.S. government, I don't think.
I would agree.
People were witnessing history.
Sort of a tribalism of people being for or against anything out there. And so that's the culture that I think we're trying to build here. So,
Marty, you had mentioned earlier you had some limo stories.
Here it goes,
but
Chris.
you didn't get
Okay.
around to it.
Hold on, Chris. I know when I heard this yesterday, I was like, I got to bring Chris on to react because this part, I was like blown away, man. So check it. Let him explain it.
sort of a tribalism of people being for or against anything out there. And so that's the culture that I think we're trying to build here. So,
Marty, you had mentioned earlier you had some limo story to share with me, but you didn't get around to it.
yeah, I learned that this is nuts. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I learned that is nuts, but this is just a little Scooby snack to share with
Scooby
you.
snack.
So I learned that we'll have foreign inspectors
Marijuana in the Scooby snack?
in another country about to inspect.
Okay, so check out. Hold on. He's funny, but we can't miss the.
nuts. I mean,
Alright.
there's a lot of stuff that I learned that
It's
is
funny.
nuts, but this is just a little Scooby snack to share with you.
Scooby snack.
So I learned that we'll have foreign inspectors in another country about to inspect a foreign manufacturing site that makes pills or something. And the foreign pharma manufacturing company will pick up our FDA inspectors in limos. And so these visits are so announced, and they're preparing for these visits that they're basically no inspection, in my opinion.
So this is like a priority of the administration, which is that if you're doing the inspections in the United States, you're held to very high standards, including random spot visits. They don't know it's coming. But if you're doing it in some other locations around the world, the standards are apparently much lax. You get a limo service there, and they know when you're coming. Which, like all great inspections, if they know when you're coming, they know when to, put out the red carpet.
Sounds like a very worthwhile surprise inspection.
Inside, it wasn't a mess.
I told you you'd get pissed. What's your thoughts on this?
It's ridiculous.
You didn't know about this, right? How many people in our industry know about this
would-
besides the one doing it?
I would have expected that to be the reverse. At least well, obviously a surprise inspection should be a surprise. But if there were one side that it were kind of, you were forewarned, I would have expected more of that to be in America opposed to a foreign country.
Right.
Right. Where, hey, Pfizer plant in Wisconsin, FDA is coming. Right.
Yeah,
Opposed
send a
to,
limo.
hey, I don't know, whatever foreign country, we're coming.
Well,
we'll be there in a month.
Yeah, like let's say Denmark, because I think Novo Nordisk is there, or AstraZeneca in
Yeah, you got Dr. Reddy in India. You have Boehringer Ingelheim in Germany.
Yep, we love them too, by the way. I would send a limo for as well.
Because I knew you were coming. But don't
I got the random drop-ins. My office is right next door.
Well, I agree. Like the element of surprise is what drives the power of an inspection, and that's a big part of what the FDA does. We've got over 300
ridiculous
officers with guns and badges, and many more that are involved in investigations. The FDA has been involved in some major raids and some investigations that have changed the industry. The Elizabeth Holmes case is one example. So a scheduled inspection, in my opinion, is basically no inspection.
Right.
So that's something we're changing.
I agree.
They're changing.
We're going to move to surprise inspections overseas, just as we have in the United States. No more limos for the FDA inspectors.
Yeah, because they shouldn't know you're coming.
And they keep the badges.
I didn't get my badge. I want a badge.
Yeah, I don't know if you get a badge.
I don't get a
CBER
badge,
is
no.
generally not a
Badge free.
badged-
It's a badge free.
It's a badge-free zone.
see.
Yeah, no, I've got a badge. I have a badge I'll show you.
Okay.
But Yeah, so fun. So this is good. Should we keep doing this, or was this a colossal failure?
No, I think it's
Yeah,
good.
this was fun.
We'll see what
Okay,
people
good.
think. We'll put the
Yeah.
video out there.
What's Bigfoot think? Good? Okay, he's on board.
Yeah.
We'll put it out there.
This
and
dude's
then, we'll try to
hilarious,
do them
man.
with reporters. We'll try to do them with the public. We'll try to do them with more
He's
people.
got
We'll talk
Einstein and
about whatever
Bigfoot so far.
issues we're taking on.
We'll find a way to get the public to submit some questions,
That's
and
what-
we can get a sense of themes, and we'll
Crowdsource some
keep asking you
questions.
questions.
Yeah,
I wanna
what
see
the feedback
Bigfoot.
is.
Let's see him.
Maybe-
Yeah, maybe on the future episodes, maybe Bigfoot becomes like
Does he
this
have
cult
big
following.
feet, or is he just really hairy? Like he has a hairy back or something?
Yeah, he said self-appointed, so I don't know. We'd have to wait to find out.
Differently or comb my hair.
I think I'm going to get that feedback.
Okay.
I think I'm going to get that feedback.
Well, maybe. Do you think Albert Einstein got that feedback when he would give a lecture?
I think he got a pass probably at some point.
Back to
I'm sure
Einstein.
there's some study out there about his productivity differences.
You know, the headline is going to read you comparing me to Einstein, and I guess I'll take it if that's what the headline reads.
Yeah, this is not Albert Einstein.
Yeah, let's just be clear.
However, his hair does have similar representations and overlaps. But no, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Welcome to the
I'm
FDA.
glad to be here.
Yeah.
And nice to work with you too.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Man,
Thanks so much, folks. We'll do it again.
Dude, I'm blown away. I mean, it's kind of a dream come true, and to see many of my colleagues trashing this like it's a bad thing. I mean,
Can I
decisions
before-
aside, you
sorry,
know, we can
I gotta
argue those.
interrupt.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think you can take from that, how everyone, at least everyone I communicate and research, they all so altruistic, right? That's what they always kind of put out there.
Yeah,
I'm doing this to be altruistic, right?
sure.
Well, when they complain about this type of thing, you just know they're self-centered, right? And they're just putting out incorrect information about themselves, in my opinion, because what they're complaining about is
Wait, break that down again, because I mean, I get what you're saying, but not the end.
so if all you're complaining about is, hey, I don't care if this is beneficial to the system, to those with rare diseases, right? Like your rare disease
Okay.
trials,
Yeah.
right? But yet I'm altruistic. Well, no, you're not.
Well,
There's-
I know. Then they use and we're starting to put people in camps, but I know what you mean now. If you're pro right to try, right?
Yeah.
And then the people come on, they do right to try, but then they do things that you may not be okay with, like be more scrutinizing when it comes to vaccines, or be more scrutinizing when it comes to certain paradigms that, yes, it's trust the science, but it's and not at the expense of all of the other science,
Mhm.
right? Which Macri goes on that Megyn Kelly one. We would react to that, but it's a full hour. So I suggest
Some
you
other
just
time.
listen to that on your own.
Some other time.
I did a 19-minute summary on YouTube, so you don't have to.
Okay.
But yeah, I get what you mean now. So what'd you think, man? Like, do you have renewed optimism in this in the FDA now? Like, I actually follow the FDA now. Their Twitter was so boring prior to this, and now they're posting podcasts.
Interesting.
They're posting podcast. If you would have told me this in 2006, I would be like, what planet are you on? What do you mean? These people don't talk. They're behind the iron curtain, like they're, Wizard of Oz. They manipulate others to speak for them, and it's all pre-scripted.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and now and they're going to bring on others.
Sure. And I forget the expression, so I'm going to slaughter it, just like I did with altruistic and self-centeredness. But sunlight is the best disinfectant, right?
Okay.
Which is what they're trying to do here. They're trying to provide sunlight for something they think's been tarnished or is infected, which I agree. I mean, the more open and honest you are and provide as much information as possible, I think that does build at least some understanding, if not trust, in a system.
Right.
If you can't answer questions and all you can do is hide and never discuss anything, well, guess what? That does quite the opposite.
Well, this FDA leadership team, even though they discuss things that are controversial and there's a lot of risk of the industry being turned upside down, which it very well might be, I do think we're bullish because one of the most important things they said is predictability. We want to be able to provide that predictability so that the sponsors can know what they're getting into beforehand. We want to bring the patients in. One of the things he told Megyn Kelly was we're taking off when so what's called the AdCom meeting. I don't know if you know what an AdCom meeting
I
is.
don't.
So when a drug is when an NDA is submitted, before the FDA decides, they may hold what's called an AdCom meeting where they bring the representative from that company, as well as patient advocates and other industry people and doctors and experts to try to discuss like the pros and cons of this NDA,
Okay.
right? Well, what happened in those AdCom meetings was instead of having as many patient advocates, they ended up just having other pharmaceutical companies join. It's
Great.
kind of like the limo thing, but for
Sure.
these meetings. So
So
they can
what's best for the industry opposed to what's best for the patient?
correct. And what Macri is doing is he's not allowing the drug company to join those AdCom meeting unless it's your NDA. Obviously, you have to defend your
Mhm.
NDA, but no other drug companies or industry insiders. It's just patients, um, uh,
The pharma owner.
the pharma owner, physicians, key opinion leaders are still allowed,
Sure.
and support groups like community advocates and things like that. So, I think everyone should be behind that, but obviously, not everyone's gonna be because you greased up the system really good. Like this is why you get certain drugs that get approved, and then it shows they don't have efficacy, and then you got to pull them 6 months later.
Hmm.
And so they're trying to change those kind of things. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not. I haven't seen them actually do anything yet, other than this podcast. But from
Hmm.
what I'm hearing, it's like night and day compared to the other administrations. I don't even know the name. I think it was Robert Califf was the last FDA head. Like just because COVID, but you don't even hear these people's names, let alone you might read a quote in like some paywalled article somewhere. But now you don't need any of that.
Didn't the former FDA um, executive or whoever was in charge, didn't he resign for some reason?
Well, Robert Califf, I think. I
Yeah.
think that was the guy who resigned. Brad Hightower is having him on his show next week.
Really?
Brad got him on. Yeah.
Interesting.
I have no interest. I mean, I take that back. I would talk to him. I'd be way more interested though in talking to these guys, any of these three we just saw, because they're currently involved. I would ask Robert questions about how things work. But I doubt I would get very good answers.
So it was Peter Marks that resigned.
Oh, Peter Marks. Okay, but the four. Okay, so Robert Califf must have been two commissioners ago then.
He wasn't the commissioner. He was U.S. Food and Drug Administration's top biologics regulator.
Who, Califf?
No, Marks. Peter
Oh,
Marks.
Marks. Okay,
The
no,
one
no.
that resigned. It was a very
Oh, okay, no.
scathing
I
resignation.
got you. No. Califf just served from 2016 to 17, and again from 22 to 25. So Brad. Shout out to Brad Hightower, our SOS co-founder. He's getting Robert on the show,
Very cool.
and I told Brad that's big time. I'm gonna try to get one of these guys on. I doubt it, but you never know.
Well, Brad could do it. You can do it.
Well, that's Robert Cal. I mean, he's doesn't have anything to do now. He's resigned.
Sure. Nonetheless, if you can get him on.
Unless you believe in that regulatory capture, and he's on a board of directors at some company.
Well,
But
he wants to speak. It sounds like he wants to get the word out that, hey, we're putting information out so you're aware of what's going on. And why wouldn't he turn to someone like you? I think got a shot.
you got a shot. But yeah, I understand they're busy. I'll try. But what do you think? Like,
Yeah,
bottom
I
line,
think it's good. I think it's good. I think, like I said, I think all regulatory agencies, all federal government should be quite open.
is there anything that scares you from this?
No.
The AI, the
Well, AI as a whole kind of scares me in terms of I do think it's going to be very problematic
no,
for
specifically how
jobs, but no.
specifically how they referred to it as an
No.
extra tool for our overworked reviewers.
No, that seems beneficial. But when
And
it
he
starts
even brought up the employee retention aspect.
sure, but when it starts cutting jobs, because it will, it'll be a problem. I mean, but
Right.
it's a problem that we'll have to deal with when that time comes.
All right. Well, thank you for the reaction. It's been long, and I know you got to go.
Dinner time.
Like, subscribe, comment, share. Try not to unfollow us. Bye bye.